It's time for Recipe of the Day. I am very excited to finally be telling you about my steak bowl recipe. Now, I am a little bit embarrassed that I am so excited because it's not exactly rocket science, but I am excited because my whole family loves this. We've been having it for dinner. Oh gosh, it started back in the pandemic. It was one of our go-to dinners that we just all loved. My kids were a lot younger then and they were, I don't want to say picky, but they liked different things. Marty likes and doesn't like different things. And so I was able to make this dinner quickly and then everybody customizes their own and everybody is happy. If you've ever heard me talk about how my daughter used to ask for piles of food for dinner, this is what she meant. She would keep hers separate. So it was a little pile of rice, little pile of meat, little pile of cheese, and little piles of all the toppings. So yeah, it just made us really happy. And to this day, I make it probably every week that the kids are with me. We have these steak burrito bowls for dinner. We never get tired of them. We all love them. So that is the recipe that I'm telling you about today, and that's why I'm so excited. It's because we love it, and for some reason I never put the recipe on the website, but it is up on the website now, and you can make it too, and even though it's not rocket science, I think you're going to love it. So first off, what kind of steak are you using? You can use leftover steak if you have leftover steak from something, but my preference is to do a flank steak for this. The reason I like it best is that it's big enough that it serves all four of us with some leftover. Usually I put it in quesadillas the next day for the kids' lunch. And I also like the flank steak for this because it's not a even thickness. It's narrower, usually at one end. And that means that I can cook it and some of it ends up more well done than other parts. And so everybody gets the kind of steak they like. Marty likes his kind of more well done. The kids are more at a medium well. I'm more around the medium area. So I just do the one steak. So the thickest part is at about a medium and then everybody gets what they like. So I really like that about it. Another cut that's like that is tri-tip. It has that uneven thickness. I will link to how to cook tri-tip. The recipe actually calls for flank steak, so I'll be telling you how to do that, but you can look at my recipe for tri-tip. Also, I've done it with skirt steak. I really like skirt steak in here. You just have to know that one's of more of an even thickness, and you have to know how to slice it properly. You have to cut it into 3-inch pieces after you cook it and then turn them 90 degrees because of the way that the fibers run in there. They don't run sort of lengthwise along it. They run up and down. And so if you just slice it lengthwise, going from one end to the other, you're going with the grain, which is going to make it chewier, harder to chew, that bad texture that we don't like with steak. So you want to cut it into those 3-inch chunks and then turn them 90 degrees and then slice them against the grain. So skirt steak is great if you do that. London broil is an option. I will just say that London broil isn't really a cut of meat. It's a style of cooking the meat, but some grocery stores and butchers will label a piece of steak London broil. It is sometimes a flank steak and it is sometimes a top round steak. Both of those work. Of course, I said the flank steak would work, so the top round steak will work as well. So those are the bigger pieces where you're doing one steak and cooking it and then slicing it. You can also use individual portion steaks like New York strips or ribeyes, chuck eye steaks. Those are all great. And what I really like about using those ones is that it's a really good recipe for stretching steak. So you usually can get enough meat for 2 portions of steak bowl from one New York strip. And from a ribeye, you can sometimes get 3 or even 4. So you can use the individual portion steak and it kind of stretches them further. You cook them, you let them rest, and then you slice them. Whatever steak you're using, you're going to need about 1/4 to 1/3 of a pound of beef per person. Oh, and you can use ground beef instead too, because ground beef is delicious. It's more of a taco bowl, I would call it then, than a steak bowl, but that works also. And I'll say that when I'm using ground beef for this, I tend to cook it in the air fryer just so it's hands off doing its thing while I'm prepping the other ingredients. And so I'm going to link in the show notes for this episode for how to cook ground beef in the air fryer. And also I will link to how to cook all those different cuts of steak that I was talking about, because all of them are great and you need the instructions for all the different ways to cook them so that they are best. And then you're going to slice them and use them in this recipe. Okay, so now let's start on actually making this. You're going to use 1 cup of uncooked long grain rice if you are making this for 4 people, and you're going to cook that according to the package directions. And while the rice is cooking, you're going to season up a pound of beef, like that flank steak, 3/4 of an inch thick, with a teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, and a teaspoon of chili powder all over it. Now, I will say it says a teaspoon of each, but I'm pretty heavy-handed on this when I'm doing it just free form. It is probably closer to 2 teaspoons of each of those. And I use kosher salt, even though it doesn't say that in the recipe. I don't like to call for special kinds of salt in recipes. I know a lot of people just use regular salt. And so that is how I test the recipes. But I'm also telling you what I reach for if I'm cooking this for myself, and it is a kosher salt. I'll also say that I usually season the flank steak all over on both sides and then put it on a rack on a pan in the fridge for a good 2 or 3 hours. And then I bring it back up to room temperature for about 30 minutes before cooking it. But none of that is necessary. I have tested it just as I'm explaining it to you, and it works perfectly as well. Those are just little extras, you know? Okay, once the steak is seasoned, you are going to go get your grill preheated for direct cooking over medium-high heat, and you can lightly oil your grates before you turn it on if that is something that you do. And then while that grill is heating up, you can oil the steak all over. 2 tablespoons of cooking oil. I usually use grapeseed oil, but olive oil's fine, whatever you like, just brushed all over the steak. And then when your grill is nice and hot, you're adding that steak onto there, that 3/4 of an inch flank steak, and you're cooking it until it has an internal temperature of 120 degrees Fahrenheit for rare or 130 degrees Fahrenheit for medium rare, a little bit more if you like it more well done. Like I said, it's going to be more well done at the thinner side and less well done at the thicker side. It's going to take between 3 to 6 minutes per side, depending how thick it is. I will say that I usually do 5 minutes on one side and 5 minutes on the other side. That is our sweet spot. I do use a meat thermometer put into the thickest part, and it has a little reader on the outside of the barbecue that I'm looking at to monitor the temperature. And if it's not where I like it, sometimes I will do another 2 minutes per side. So 5 minutes on each side, and then sometimes it needs another 2. But like I said, we like ours a little bit more well done than some people, so you're probably going to be at that 3 to 6 minutes per side. Then you're going to transfer it to a cutting board and let it rest for at least 5 minutes. Now, that whole time that it was cooking and resting, you could be getting your toppings ready. That's 2 cups of shredded lettuce, 2 tomatoes chopped, 2 avocados chopped. You could do other things as well. Cilantro, some green onion, bell pepper. We do cucumber quite often because a lot of us like cucumber, nice and fresh and sort of crunchy in there. You could do black beans. You just open a can and drain them. Some corn, frozen corn, thawed. Those are all great options. Get those ready and put them in bowls, and you can get some shredded cheese or queso fresco and put that in a bowl. And then your rice is cooked. Fluff it with a fork. Divide it between the 4 bowls. We actually use pie plates for this. I don't know. It started during the pandemic. Everything was crazy, right? So we use pie plates for our steak bowl dinners, but you can use just regular sort of big soup bowls. And you put the rice in there, and then you give everybody their bowl. And they go along and start with the steak, which you will have thinly sliced against the grain by then, and then the cheese. I like to do the hot things first, so it's the rice and the beef, and then the cheese right on top, so it just kind of softens a bit. It's not going to melt, but it just gets that little bit softer, and then they can add whatever toppings they like. And then the most important thing is, over top of the whole thing, you take 3 or 4 tortilla chips and you crush it over top. It adds this really nice, like slightly corn flavor and some more salt, and of course, the crunch. Do not skip those tortilla chips. They really make the meal. And I will say we have tried this with Doritos as well. So good. Okay, that is my not rocket science recipe for steak burrito bowls. I cannot wait for you to try them. We love them so much. I know you will too. I will put the link to this recipe in the show notes for this podcast episode, or you can head to cookthestory.com/ROTD and get it there. Everything there is arranged by date, so it's helpful to know that today is July 28th of 2025. And if you haven't subscribed to this podcast yet, you need to. You'll get a new recipe idea every day. It makes that decision-making process so much easier when you're trying to decide what to make. I've got you. You listen to me, and then you know what to make tonight or in the days ahead when you're meal planning. all those decisions made for you. Makes life easier, right? So to subscribe, go to your favorite podcast app on your phone and search for Recipe of the Day. You will find me there. Hit subscribe or follow, or you can go to cookthestory.com/ROTD and you'll see the places that you can subscribe across the top, like Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Those are there. Tap on those, then hit subscribe or follow. I am Christine Pittman from cookthestory.com, thecookful.com, the all-new chicken cookbook, and from this podcast, Recipe of the Day. I hope you have a great day. Let's get cooking.